Hey everyone, my name is Karen. I'm an astrologer, I'm an art therapist, and I'm a tarot reader. And I want to talk a little bit about the astrology of what's happening in Great Britain right now, with Elizabeth dying, with a new king being installed, and with this huge archetypal theater that we're watching right now. So let me share my screen with you. Okay. So astrology is based on the fact that everything has a birth chart. So you can be a Leo or an Aries, and the same way that you have a sign and 10 planets and all this other stuff going on, the same way every city, every country, the US is a Cancer, July 4th, every corporation, and of course every reign of an elected official, whether that's the president of the United States, the King of England, or the governor of California, they all have sort of a birth chart where sort of it forecasts the energy that they have to work with during the time that they are in office. As an example, Ronald Reagan was famous or infamous for using astrology to help him set himself up energetically as well as possible. And apparently when he became governor of California in 1967, his Carol Ryder, his then astrologer, advised him to take the oath of office at 12:10, not on 12:01 on January 2nd, because something shifted in the chart that was meaningful. I haven't looked at it, I don't know what it is, but clearly it worked out for him because he went on and he became president. So in the same vein, actually that's not the chart I want. The moment that Queen Elizabeth died, her son became king, and it was the beginning of his reign. Now we don't know the time of death, obviously we'll never know probably, and but we do know that the prime minister was notified at 4:30 local time, 4:30 p.m. And I'm making an assumption that she did not die before 1:30 p.m. because I don't think they would have kept this from the prime minister for 3 hours. Why 1:30? Because at 1:30 the moon went what's called void of course. So if we're assuming that she died between 1:30 and 4:30, the moment that Charles's reign began was a moon void of course. What does that mean? A moon void of course is a weak moon. It means it has it makes no more aspects before it switches signs, and any project that you start under a void of course moon has very little power and energy and juice behind it, so it's not advisable. Then the second thing, when he became king, Charles, at the moment, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have 6 planets retrograde. Now, the outer planets, like for instance, Pluto and Neptune, spend lots of times retrograde. So it's not that unusual, but the fact that there's so many inner planets, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, that are retrograde at the same time is meaningful. When a planet is retrograde, it basically means that its power is diminished, and retrograde means you're going back to fix something, to reinvent something, to restructure something, to rethink something. There's an element and an energy of it wasn't quite set up right, so we're going to go back. And it's like when you drive off and you forgot your phone and you got to turn on and go get your phone. That would be Mercury retrograde. It would be annoying as shit, and it would also be about communication, your phone. So these planets rule different areas of our life. So Mercury's communication. So just imagine, as I'm saying, is how this would be if it was stifled and sort of you had to do a U-turn. Mercury communication, Jupiter expansion, Saturn structure and restriction, Uranus not expansion. Uranus is revolution, change, freedom. Neptune is spirituality, and Pluto is power. And I'm saying this, and as an example, I want to bring here, this is the planets the way they were when the Ukraine achieved independence. on August 24, 91, there was actually 5 planets that were retrograde. So even 1 planet less than right now. And what we're seeing is, so what that meant was that the Ukraine also started off from a weak position. They had achieved their independence from Russia, but it was a very sort of tenuous agreement. And so now they're going back, forced to by the invasion of Russia. And now they're sort of reinventing themselves who Ukraine is. And clearly the whole world already has a very much different picture. I do think they're going to stay independent. They might lose some territory, but overall Ukraine will not cease to exist. And the Ukraine that will come out of this is a much stronger Ukraine than the one that existed in 1991. So I'm saying actually, let me just finish this. So the third thing that's happening, so Charles was officially proclaimed king at St. James Place in London on September 10 at 11 a.m. as he was in front of his ministers and this whole bunch of, I think it's called the Privy Council. There was a whole lot of, again, archetypal ceremony, but the official proclamation was at 11 a.m. to the public. And at that very moment, believe it or not, the full moon was exact at 17 degrees Pisces. And I've heard a couple of astrologers go on about that, how terrible that is. And you don't start something on the full moon, you finish something, it's a culmination and so forth. So I tend to disagree a little bit about it being so very bad. I think this was the conclusion of Elizabeth's reign, and then now there's room for something else. However, the moon, when it's full, it wanes, it gets smaller, it loses power for a full 2 weeks before there's a new moon, and then it gains again. So again, there's this indication of there will be a weakening, there will be a slow start, there will be I'm not right, getting it right, that sort of thing. And surely he's facing a lot of sort of uphill. And first of all, we're living in the modern world where colonialism and this whole idea of Commonwealth and who's a part of it and what crimes England committed creating this empire is sort of up for discussion and for making new choices. And I think very much Charles needs to navigate that very carefully and also end up then with a Commonwealth where people are by choice and equals and all this other stuff. And then, of course, the other thing, the whole discrepancy between money, the amount of money he's inherited and the perception of him being out of touch with his golden throne and all this other stuff. So he will need a coronation. So there will need to be the archetypal ritual of this. He's being made king. But I think it'll probably be a point of contention about how expensive it is and who's going to pay for it. And if he's smart, he's going to foot at least part of the bill, because right now with Britain's people struggling to pay for heating and medication and a roof over their head, it's not going to go over well. And then the other thing, the last thing, right now, I think I might have talked about this in previous videos. Right now we have in the sky, we have a fight between Saturn, tradition and structure, and Uranus, revolution and new thought and freedom. And it's called a square. It's a 90-degree angle. And it's been going on for the last couple of years, as evidenced by such things as restriction and quarantining and stay at home, Saturn, and I'm not getting vaccinated, I'm not wearing a mask, you can just go to hell, Uranus sort of thing. So this is what's happening for all of us collectively. And then his, actually I'm gonna go to his chart. And then in his chart, it actually will particularly hit him because he has a son. So his sun is in his sun is in Scorpio, and he has in his birth chart, so baked into the energetic construct he was born in, he already had this square heart aspect with Pluto, with power. So the fact that it took 70 years for him to actually become the king was actually a good thing, because he needed that amount of time to adjust to that, to carry that kind of energetic construct and that grid, I think. And he's still, I believe he will always be slightly uncomfortable with it. And then right now we're having in the sky, we're having Uranus up here in it's in Taurus. Oops, sorry. And then Saturn is in Aquarius, and actually it's not quite exact yet. It'll be closer next year, but basically here you have a square this way, here you'll have a square this way. So you will have what's called a grand cross that's going to exert a huge amount of pressure on Charles to deal with these forces of anarchy versus tradition, and of power versus rulership, and do we really need a king, and all this stuff. So all of these things are coming up, and he will be especially challenged because, again, the birth chart of his reign as king has such a, I hate to say it's such a weak beginning. And just sort of one last thing in terms of him being overshadowed, this seems sort of his lot in life, starting off with apparently his brother Andrew was his mother's favorite, not him. That must be hard. Especially since, Charles's moon here is at 0 degree Taurus, and his mother's sun, who she was at 0 degree Taurus. So in his eyes, she always was the ideal mother. There was a true hero worship going on. I remember him calling her mummy in public a couple of times. I'm like, ooh, this is a grown man. This just sounds weird. But anyway, so there's it truly is adoration and love, but he's sort of trying to live up to her expectation, and I don't think ever quite did, sort of always being in the shadow of his brother. And then, of course, later in life, in the shadow of Princess Diana. And then just recently, like the last couple of days, on the day that they had the proclamation, where he was pronounced king, the same day, later in the day, his son William and his wife, and then Harry and his wife went out to talk to the mourners together. And it was like a huge, oh my God, the Fab Four, blah, blah. It was huge news that they would do that together. And then the next day, apparently, probably not all newspapers, but some newspapers, maybe all, I don't know, carried not the picture of the king being proclaimed, but carried the picture of those four as they were out there, which, of course, yet another slap in the face. So Charles, uphill struggle. I do not envy that man. I also did a blog post where I talked less about astrology and more about sort of archetypal forces. And if you want that, here's the link. I'm going to put that in the show notes. If you want to talk to me about your own astrology chart, or want a tarot reading, or any kind of sort of conversation about where you are in life archetypally, you can reach me at my website here. And I actually have a coupon, a discount right now of 20% off that you can use to get a discount. So that is all there is. And I will talk to you guys later. Oh, please subscribe and like. I always forget that. Subscribe and like, please. Thank you.